In this tutorial, we'll create a simple to-do app with Flutter Data. We're going to list to-dos from the server, limit the amount, create new ones, toggle the completed state and save to the server, swipe to delete, pull to refresh, overwrite, modify to-dos. Let's get started. So first thing, we're gonna head over to pubspec.yaml, check that our SDK is recent, and add Flutter Data as a dependency, the latest version. The only required dependency is build runner in dev dependency. JSON annotation provider and path provider are all optional, but highly recommended. So we're gonna create a folder called models and to-do Dart inside that folder to create our class of to-do, which extends data support of to-do. Data support is a class in Flutter Data. It enforces a getter of ID. So that's why we'll override a final int of ID, title of type string, and a boolean of completed. We create a constructor and add name arguments that set false as default for completed. And the next thing we'll do is add JSON serializable as an annotation on the class. Usually JSON serializable needs to do from JSON factory constructor, but in Flutter Data models, this is not required. Next, we'll add the part with our generated code and add the data repository annotation, which takes a list of adapters. Adapters are Flutter Data building blocks. This is the way we can customize our generated repositories. The standard JSON adapter maps a very common JSON format, such as the one from JSON serializable, and that's why we are including here for serialization and deserialization. However, we're missing an important part, is how to reach JSON placeholder, and that's why we'll create our own JSON placeholder adapter, and we'll override the base URL getter. Once this is done, we'll include it in our adapters list, and everything is set up. Next thing we do is run the builder. Now that it's done, we'll check we have todo.g.dart and main.data.dart. We'll see what that means in a second. Back in our main method, we will wrap our app in a multi-provider where we'll include a list of our application-wide providers. Flutter Data generated a very useful function that returns a list of all repository providers. It only requires an argument for the directory of this application in order to do local storage. We'll start by changing the hello world into a circular progress indicator. We're going to wrap that widget in a builder. We use just a stream builder VS Code shortcut, but we're going to remove all that code. Just leave the context, and next thing we'll do is check if data manager is ready. That means we're going to watch it with provider, and when that is different to null, we'll know that all our repositories have been initialized, and otherwise show the spinner. Let's quickly show a text of hello Flutter Data, and just to check if our to-do repository was successfully created and initialized, we'll go read it with provider, and we print it out to the screen. Let's restart the app and check that the repository is there. Next thing we'll do is add a stateless widget called to-do screen. We'll bring back our to-do repository and add a future builder. We specify the future, which is repository.findAll. That will return a list of to-dos from JSON Placeholder. And we're gonna create a builder which does the usual stuff, checking the snapshot data, returning a spinner. In order to display data, we'll use a list view. We specify the item count, which is snapshot.data.length, but that's not available, and that's because we haven't specified that the type of the future is a list of to-do. So that we have it, we paste a text widget to display our to-dos in the screen, and we call snapshot.data of I to access this specific to-do. Lastly, we have to return our to-do screen widget. Now we hot reload and all the to-dos are displayed in the app. Let's add some params to limit the amount of to-dos that we're receiving from the API to 5 and restart. That worked. Next thing we'll do is add a floating action button, and we'll use that button to add a random to-do to our list. So we're creating one. We click and nothing happens, but so we'll see, yeah, there is a post to placeholder happening, but why isn't it displayed? Well, this is because Future Builder only renders once. So we're gonna swap that for a data state builder, which essentially is like a value listenable builder, but instead gives us data state objects. Let's find the latest version of Flutter Data State and add it to our postback.yaml. Now that our dependencies are updated, we can import the file. The notifier is a state notifier from the state notifier package. So therefore repository.watchAll will give us this notifier and the builder access to data state objects, which are very useful because as you can see, we can check on its loading, error, and data. If we restart the app, this worked. Now we can click on the plus button and a new to-do has been created. The ID just updated from the server. Let's filter this to user ID equal to 1. And instead of creating a random to-do in our floating action button, we'll add a to-do with an ID equal to 1. So when we click the action button, this will not add a new one, but it will replace the first one. Time to refactor some code and put that builder into a new stateless widget called to-do list. We need to add a constructor where we can pass in some state and call it to-do list with an argument of state. Wrap that with a widget. What we want to do now is add a refresh indicator for a pull to refresh feature in our app. And on refresh, we'll call notifier.reload. This is a very useful function provided by the package. And now that we override our task, if we pull to refresh, the list will be reset, and that's expected because JSON placeholder does not persist data. It will return the original data instead. And now we'll paste some code for dismissible so we can have a swipe left to delete a to-do. This provides a callback on dismissed, and there we can delete the model and it's out of the list. If we refresh again, we can reset the list as usual. And the last feature we'll add is a gesture detector. So on double tap, we're gonna actually toggle the state of completed. So all we're gonna do is copy the existing to-do ID, copy the existing to-do title, and negate the bool completed and save. If we hot reload, double click, and it toggles. And like that, all our to-dos have been completed.